Hello, my name is Hunter Cruse and I work for Cruse Publishing, and this week I read James Riley's The Revenge of Magic. The book begins with Fort and his dad visiting the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. on vacation. As they are doing so, a hand erupts from the ground and snatches Fort's dad and takes him underground. The book cuts to 6 months later where Fort is offered a chance to go to Dr. Oppenheimer's School of Magic. He accepts the invitation, and when he gets there, he meets his roommate Cyrus, who teaches him the ropes of the school and where everything is. He is going to go meet his teacher, Mrs. Ambrose, and he's going to be learning how to heal. But as he goes to a classroom to meet her, he overhears Oppenheimer and her talking about him. They talk about how he should not be allowed to be at the school and that he just causes more harm than good. He overhears this and is not pleased, but he walks in there and pretends like he did not hear it, and he starts talking to Mrs. Ambrose and realizes that she is very mean to him and very brash with him. She tells him that he has 3 days to learn 3 separate spells before he will take a test to determine whether he can stay in the school or not. If he fails the test, he will be kicked out. The spells usually take 3 to 4 weeks to learn per each spell, and he has to learn all 3 of them in 3 days. He gets a tutor whose name is Gia, and he begins to start studying. While doing so, he gets constant flashbacks of this girl named Sierra and Damien and Dr. Oppenheimer before the Washington Monument attacks. Damien has been overtaken by some monster, and Sierra and Dr. Oppenheimer are trying to stop it and get Damien free. Fort is in the body of Sierra, and Sierra is in his head telling him what to do, and in his head giving him information on what he should do. On the last day before his test, he sneaks into the library after it is closed to try and get some last minute studying in, to try and get all 3 spells crammed into his head. While he's there, he meets Rachel, who is very closely related to the top of the food chain of the school, and she starts talking to him and asking what he's doing there. Eventually, Rachel cuts a deal with him and says that she will help him find out who Sierra is if he passes the test. And on that night, he does a lot of studying, but he falls asleep and is not able to fully study. So he goes into the classroom the next morning to take the test, and he does not know any of it. But Sierra takes Gia's mind and puts the spells from her mind and takes them and puts them into Fort's mind. He is able to pass the test because of that, and Gia is very mad at him for taking her spells out of her mind. Gia agrees to help him find Sierra, and Rachel overhears and joins them too. The night after, they all go to try and use ethereal magic to help them go underground to the deeper layers of the school where they have been hiding things. Cyrus, because he can read the future, knows that this is going on, and he joins the crew. As he goes down, their alarm bells start ringing, and his friends go up, but Fort keeps going down because Sierra is commanding his mind and commanding his body to keep going down and find her. Eventually, he makes it down to the layer where she is, and he goes and touches her and gets one final memory of her right before the attacks, and finds out that Damien was actually the monster that held the monster that perpetrated the events of the Washington Monument attack that took his father. Eventually, Damien and Sierra wake up, and they all fight monsters downstairs, and then they also have to fight monsters upstairs that had been taken over Colonel Charles, the leader, taken over him, and they have to fight that monster and send it back to where it came from, and then they win. The book ends on a cliffhanger that Fort's dad might still be alive. After reading the book, I kind of find a lot of similarities between it and something like Harry Potter. I mean, obviously the parents are gone because his mom had also died years before the story had taken place, and his dad is gone. So, I mean, that does it right there. And he's on his own on a school of magic, which, I mean, Harry Potter. And yeah, so I just feel like it was a very similar story to Harry Potter in a very similar setup. And I think it does it well. I mean, it's not it's a knockoff version, but it's not like it's a really, really like bad or distasteful. It sticks to what it does well enough. It knows it's kind of not reinventing the wheel, and I enjoy that it is kind of self-aware, and I think that was a really good choice. The book itself is like harmless. There's nothing like bad. There's nothing groundbreaking, but there's nothing bad about it either. It's just a harmless, fun book that's going to lead to a series that people who enjoy Harry Potter, Percy Jackson, stories like that will really enjoy. And I think the fact that it does that is very well, and I think, it's a good book for what it is. And also, I think it would be make a lot of money because, it obviously appeals to, it's a very big genre, and the previous stories have made a lot of money, so there's no reason for this to not make a lot of money. And I feel like it's going to do really, really well, and it's going to sell a lot just based off the concept of itself, because the concept has been proven time and time again to be so successful, and it appeals to everyone. It's not just adults, it's not just little kids like Pete the Cat book. It's like a adult for like preteens, or a young adult book, and it's pretty long. It has 400 pages, but I don't think that's a big deterrent because, obviously Percy Jackson and Harry Potter, some books even have more than 400 pages. So I think it is a really good book in that regard. The pace, I feel like the pace could have been better. It started off really fast on the attacks within Washington, D.C., but then it really kind of slows to a halt besides the flashbacks, which, the flashbacks are really the only thing that keep the story progressing in the middle of this book, because nothing really happens. They're setting up more sequels, so we have to build the characters, but as a standalone book, it's just really slow in the middle, and it just drags to a complete halt, and it's just a slog to get through besides the flashbacks. Not a lot of action in the middle, and it just really wasn't that interesting in the middle, unfortunately. Type of reader, I think it's preteens and people who enjoy fantasy stories like Harry Potter. And it's not just a standalone book, it is going to be a series. Obviously, they set up a lot of sequels with the fact that his dad might be alive and that there are monsters roaming the world. But yeah, I think, it's harmless. It's a harmless book, and it's a family story aimed more so towards kids, but not completely. Adults could enjoy it too. It's not like like I said, it's not a Peter Cat book. It is a good story, and it is, geared towards everyone. It's not just one certain demographic. Anyone can read it, but if I had to choose, it'd probably be aimed more towards kids. It does redo the same formula that a lot of other books before it had done. It's not reinventing the wheel, but it's good at what it does. It stays in its lane. It knows what it is, and I really appreciate that out of the book. It's not bad by any means, but I do think the pace should have been a lot faster. I feel like there should have been more action. There should have been more going on other than just him being in the school and nothing really happening. Obviously, I think books like Percy Jackson and even Harry Potter do it a lot better because they have a lot more action going on. There's a lot more moving parts. But for this one, it's just more of a simple story, except for the flashbacks, which really keep it interesting in the middle part of the book. But overall, it's a fine book. I think it should be published. It's going to make a lot of money. It does what it intends to do pretty well. And I thought it was very enjoyable, and I'm glad I read it.